It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a flying canine, it's a WolfHawk. It's a swooping, snarling, no use hollering WolfHawk. In the burning sun, even outlaws run when they hear that screeching howl. WolfHawk.
Welcome to WolfHawk Comedy Podcast.
I'm Elliot Broder.
I'm Lizzie Wolfson.
And I'm Mike Hawkburns.
And we have an incredible guest in the studio today. We're so excited to have him. He is an author.
An artist, a
man of the bush, kind of like me. Some would call him, what do they call him? Caveman on TikTok.
Professional caveman.
But I think they're also calling him Zaddy in the comments.
Johnny Depp,
welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Yes.
They're calling you Zaddy in the podcast.
Zaddy?
Did you look?
No, I try not to look too much, but sometimes.
That's healthy,
buddy.
I get in there.
Yeah.
You just look to find like a request for something cool.
I do, yeah. I focus on some of the requests, but I also try to build kind of like a community within those people.
Yeah.
Because I think we have this kind of notion these days, you should never reply to comments or do this, and I'm a complete polar opposite.
Right.
Those are the people, you guys are comedians.
Yeah.
You know your fans, the people that watch your stuff. They dedicate their time and their money, and you were there to make them laugh, and you guys are phenomenal at it. And it's kind of the same thing with me. It's like if they want to reach out and say, could you make this? Or, hey, man, I really appreciate it. I try to just
I think that having that, you have a fandom, right? You have, there's people that are fans of you.
Sure.
And knowing that there's a possibility that their questions could get answered in the comments makes them want to continue watching you because there's that personal story.
Yeah,
right?
which I guess before we get too deep into it, I guess we should say that, one of the things that at least I discovered you, and I think that you were somewhat famous for, is taking the request of making usually an ancient weapon or a video game.
Yeah, your weapons. That's the move for everybody, right?
And then you proceed to just take a pile of bones and rocks and then just
that's it.
Make it.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird journey with the whole TikTok thing because my son wanted to go on it, and as a somewhat responsible father, I was like, I should probably keep tabs on what you're watching.
Yeah.
And then I think I was 41 at the time. And I'm like, this is not where I want to be because there's 18-year-old girls dancing and just weird stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Early TikTok was
was weird.
It was raw.
Yeah,
it was raw. I was like, what is going on? A lot of dancing and stuff. And I'm like, dude, I can't dance, guy.
I'll never make it on this app. I can't even dance.
I'm screwed totally. And he was like, so I was like, you got to come off, man. And he's like, Dad, just do your stuff. You're always making things, just record it. So I was like, all right. Started doing that. And next thing you know, it just kind of spiraled one into another. And then the audience really created the kind of the format. Can you make this? I simply say, yeah. And then.
Yeah, you found the thing.
That was it.
And some people, they'll do a thing and whatever it if it's a response video or something like that, and it doesn't always kind of snowball the way that yours did. And it's so cool that it does because every video, even though they're similar, they're still different. And so you want to watch it. It almost becomes like AMSR. I was watching some of them and I was like, oh, I kind of love, there's something.
The scratching rock noises are really good.
Calming and chill with it, that's, and you're learning at the same time, right? You're taking in information.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole flint napping thing is people are like, what is this? They're not familiar with it. And it's, a 3.3 million year old kind of practice done by early hominids. And I think it's just a dude that has been into this his whole entire life. It was just an opportunity to
Yeah, so I
share.
That's I guess another thing I was going to ask because it seems like you have done this for a long time. You didn't just start for TikTok.
He already knew how to do it before he got on.
So what got you into making stone tools, or where did it start? I guess.
Yeah, so I think this was probably around 2008, 2009, because I was always into survival and bushcraft and kind of living remotely.
Bushcraft, not man of the bush. That's where I was wrong.
That's the word.
That's the word.
I'm a man of the bush.
There you go. I wasn't wrong. I was wrong.
I'm gonna just do this real quick.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But no, so I was living in Joshua Tree, California, and I just wanted to kind of deep dive into kind of how we ultimately survived as a species. So I took all my modern gear and I drove to Palm Springs, gave it to a bunch of homeless folks. So these expensive tents and sleeping bags. I said, here you guys go. And then I took one anthropology class at a local community college, and it, through that process kind of learned that it was about flint napping and stone tools. And I had been doing that sort of practice but it kind of gave me a little bit more, clarification, kind of put a box around certain things. And then I just started there and said, how did we do it? We did it with this. This was our first skill. So I should learn this skill. I should master this skill.
Start from the beginning.
Yeah, head out in the bush, start from the beginning. And
that's where the caveman comes into play, right?
Is there like
you started from the beginning.
Pretty much.
Is there like flint or obsidian there in California, or where were you getting your rocks?
So there's
not to get into too deep of a rock dive.
He loves rocks.
Do you
He loves rocks.
Rocks are awesome.
I mean, I like all sciences, but I do. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, and my dad was a little bit of a. He used to be an arrowhead hunter, so. Growing up, he would find them just walking around, and he grew up kind of on a farm.
There you go.
So he tried napping a few times, but I definitely had seen a couple people do it at like a festival or a show. When I was young, so it's definitely like it's a real thing to watch.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time, a lot of stitches,
right?
Because you're just dealing with essentially like razor blades. But there's tons of stone all throughout the world that is nappable, and it comes in various grades. So obsidian, pretty common, is essentially a glass. It's volcanic glass, same as a windshield or a window. And then you have cherts and flints and keokooks, all these different types of stones, but they are all high in silicate. And a silicate allows it to break in a conchoidal fracture. So you shoot a BB gun at a window,
right?
Creates that perfect 90-degree cone. That's called a Hertzian cone. And essentially, if you take a piece of stone and you manipulate its angle, you can replicate that cone.
If it has enough silica.
So it's waxy, glassy, smooth.
That's interesting.
And featureless.
He also likes being right. You see that?
Yeah.
Did you see him smile? If it has enough silicone.
You are
Look
correct.
at that.
Yeah, I was listening.
I was listening too. We just have two different reactions.
And so you were using like flint then? There's flint there.
Mostly obsidian, and then there's this stuff called argillite, which is like a sedimentary rock that's been compressed that essentially turns into a nappable stone. And there's different types of cherts that you can find in riverbeds and streams. So in California, I was mostly focused on obsidian and light cherts. And then as I moved to different places, you get accustomed to different stones.
Do we have obsidian here in Colorado? I'm sure we do somewhere, right?
We do. We have some in the kind of southern portion, the Four Corners area out down south of Alamosa. We also have dacite, which is a type of volcanic stone. It's a little bit higher degree of obsidian. It's a little bit more coarse, and it doesn't have that sheen. But we have this stuff I call Colorado chert. It's just this natural chert you can find along the Front Range, quartzites. Wow. You have chalcedonies, which are all these different types of stone that are just all around the mountain. So sometimes if you go hiking out in the mountains, you might come across a big quartz vein.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
With it being exposed, you can take chunks, pop off small little flakes, turn them into projectiles, and do some hunting.
So how often do you get to a point where you look at it and you go, I don't think this one's going to work? Do you start breaking it and you go like, I could keep going, but it's probably just not going to make the shape that I want. Toss it, go back to the next one, or can you really work it?
You can work it with enough kind of like time and practice. You can run into a lot of errors, these hinges and fractures, and all sorts of different concretions in the actual rock. And once you kind of understand how that rock flows with every strike, you can find ways to work through those problems. It takes a little bit more time, a little bit more practice.
Right.
But if I'm making something and it's not coming out the way I want it, I just kind of set off to the side, and I'm like, eventually, his story, that piece of stone, will have his full kind of outcome, if you will.
That's great.
I feel like that's the same for comedy, except if I do a joke and it doesn't work, I'll at least tell it one more time.
Yeah.
He's probably going to hit it a couple more times.
Yeah,
at least once.
Yeah, he's got to hit it a couple more times, and then he'll come back to it later. It's the same thing.
But it's a process.
Yeah. It's a process.
You guys go through a process, starting phase, all the way to that finished product. But sometimes even your finished product, you might need to resharpen it like I would if I shot a stone point at something and broke a chip off. You can readdress it, resharpen it, reshape it.
Yeah, so when you resharpen, it is kind of slowly shrinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
every time you take off stone,
it's
decreasing.
So you just kind of take an edge off, basically.
Yeah, you just pressure flake. You pop small little flakes off, and those flakes essentially create the serrations. So I have some knives that started like this, and then after using them for 4 or 5 years, they're like that, and just different
like
shapes.
a pencil, like an old school pencil,
like an old school pencil,
just hanging on to it.
Exactly.
And you're still writing with it, a little nub.
Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of goes into another thing I wanted to ask too, which because I actually thought about bringing some antler to you, but I was going to see if you are able to source most of the stuff you're building from locally.
Absolutely, yeah. That's kind of like the one of the premises that I like to kind of always establish, that nature provides all.
Right.
Yeah.
So everything that I create comes from the bush, whether it's a shed I picked up or an elk that I shot. Those antlers become handles and tools and needles and hooks.
So cool.
Roadkill.
Are you to a point where people
I
send
know
you stuff?
roadkill. I was listening to you on a podcast. Roadkill. That's
Roadkill. It's phenomenal.
yeah. That's
It's smart.
eating.
It's free food.
He was talking about eating roadkill.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you think about it, Denver, Colorado, it's
Yeah.
great because we get cold temps. Something gets
Sure.
hit late at night. It
Yeah.
just freezes. You just pick it up and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got
I mean,
it out and eat it.
I'm from Alabama, so
yeah.
people not afraid of eating roadkill.
Yeah.
In the South.
the South.
The joke goes in Alabama, it's like, what do people from Alabama call an armadillo?
What?
They call it possum on the half shell.
Possum on the half shell. Yeah. Or like, how can you tell the
Yeah.
difference between a Himalayan possum and like a northern possum?
Yeah.
Himalayan on the ground.
Himalayan.
That's a good one.
Feel free to use that.
Yeah. Right.
Possum jokes. That'd be
Yeah,
hilarious if I
that's
did write
wild.
a whole bit of
Yeah, it's so
possum
cool that you can
jokes.
use all of the buffalo, which is I think just
Yeah.
such a interesting aspect of it. I think that even a lot of people that hunt, they use some pieces and they
Absolutely.
know that they can make certain things, but a lot of it goes to waste. Probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I
know?
mean, like with this last bison class that I did, we butchered an
Yeah.
entire bison with stone tools. And, the goal is to give the students the opportunity, one, to take apart megafauna with,
Yeah.
a stone
Wild.
tool that big. Lots of meat, sinew, ribs, bones, and then smacking open the bones and extracting the marrow. Just
It's
I mean,
hot, right?
yeah.
It's got to be hot.
The marrow?
I mean, just
It's
like being
the
that
animal
close to the
itself.
animal when you're,
Yeah,
when you're
it's
opening it up.
it's warm, but I mean, if you're gonna eat it like you're eating raw liver or heart or
Yeah.
testicles, something like that, it's
You eat the raw testicles? Is that?
well, goat testicles. I
Goat,
think.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
goat's good.
What?
Old goat?
So how many people
No,
are
young
in the,
goat. Wait
how-
a second. Goat testicles. Young goat testicles. Young, right?
Yeah.
Not old.
Well,
Old doesn't sound tasty.
I mean, it depends where you're at. Like,
Okay.
being some in Africa, you got to
Yeah.
nibble on them. The kids like to eat them. So you're like, well,
Yeah,
they get
yeah.
a bite of that.
Well,
So how
I've done a lot of brandings.
Okay.
And so then we'll eat the testicles after that.
Yeah.
But it's more like frying it up.
Yeah,
Do a
it's-
little.
cut them
fry it.
out,
Yeah.
slice them down, fry them.
I mean, you
up
could
with some-
definitely do it raw, I guess, if you wanted.
You can eat anything raw, technically.
So back to this, at the risk of making people grossed out, how many people are in the bison class? Like how many people are?
I usually like to keep it around 8. So that's, you got a lot of sharp things moving around, but once the bison starts to come apart, that's when it's like a divide and conquer because you got, hindquarters and front shoulders, 200-300 pounds each. You're trying to separate those. People are breaking those down, pulling out the guts, removing the hide, taking the head off.
So you kind of break into teams
you
a
do.
little bit.
Collectively, it's all together, just removing the hide and then break
Wait,
it down
are you
into
doing
those
it on
teams.
the ground though?
Yeah, on the ground.
Okay, you're going
so
on the ground.
You're having to roll over, and
Yeah.
hold up legs, and
Yeah, you need a
it's
couple
just-
people to do that.
fun.
It's a lot of work, and it takes you, 7-8 hours.
Yeah.
I've done it with 4 people, and it's only taken us like 6 hours. But we were very familiar with actually taking apart the animal. That was with University CU Boulder.
See you, Boulder. Okay.
Yeah, with their archaeology department.
Oh, they're not their mascot. That's cool.
Not yet. I keep asking them, but they're like,
I know.
Yeah, they gave him too many drugs
Yeah,
before the
yeah.
game.
You come in there with a CSU shirt on and it's just covered, and you're like, I'm
don't
here
know
to
what
take
happened.
apart a buffalo.
I wish I knew the name of their mascot.
Oh, I don't
Ralphie.
know. What is it?
Ralphie.
Ralphie?
Ralphie,
But it's a
yeah.
female, right? Isn't it a female?
not
The actual
sure.
one is a female?
Well, my sister went to CU, and every time I do a bison class, I'm like,
Yeah.
guess what? Photos. And she's like, that's horrible.
I know, right? She can't take it. Yeah,
What are you
yeah.
going to do?
Well,
Yeah,
Cam.
that's like your diagram is like in the mascot costume.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, these are the hindquarters.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Flank
Cam-
steaks, shanks.
Cam is a ram up at CSU,
Cam.
but he has to be because he has his big horns. But
Gotcha.
they have like 4 of them or something like that. There's like 4 or
Okay.
5 cams up there, and then they
Gotcha.
just are little
They just
breeding
rotate
stock
through.
for
Okay.
the
I'm sure
female.
it's the same at
makes sense.
CSU.
They
I'm
have
sure
it there.
they replace them ever so often.
I bet they do. I
I
mean,
mean, bison don't live super long.
they could go 20 plus years. Like
Yeah.
we butchered out a female bison up in Montana, and she was like 21 years old and
Wow.
had like 17 or 18,
Calves.
offspring
Yeah.
calves.
Wow. I didn't think they lived that long, but I guess
They're more hardy than cows are.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, and a lot of the bison ranches throughout the state. So the one I go to is Eagle Wings Ranch out in just near Kremlin, Colorado.
Okay.
And
oh yeah, I know. It's kind of near the sawmill over there. Is that the?
it's.
I've seen.
This is a running theme where somebody says something about Colorado.
I've seen
He
a
says
couple
something very random about that spot that totally could be real,
I've seen a
and
couple of
nobody knows
herds
what
up there.
Elliot's talking about. This is a common theme. This is not just you. Don't worry, it's almost every single guest. Where he-
sure there's a sawmill out
I used to get lumber
mentions a
from
road.
a sawmill up there
Okay.
in Kremling.
Okay.
And I would see the bison herds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that one that's right on the side of the road in the dirt. This one is like another 60 miles past up in the mountains. And but yeah, I mean, you really don't have to do much to them. You don't have to calve them. You don't really have to give them a lot except for,
They're
give them,
pretty wild.
Yeah, they're pretty wild. They kind of harbor up if one of them's hurt.
Right.
Aside from giving them some extra grass and feed, something like that, if it's a bad winter, they're pretty much just self-sufficient.
They have them
Yeah.
up in northern Colorado
check on
too,
them
like
every once in a while.
when you're
Yeah.
going up to
Yeah.
Wyoming.
Yeah, you
Like,
see them
to
across the border.
from Carr to Wyoming to Cheyenne and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You see them all over. Because I honestly, I don't know if the cows would do all right. I mean, I guess hardy enough cows would, but
I think some cows, and I know a lot of the herds that are here still have. I think there's a mix of like bison and then
They're like-
bovine.
right,
There's
beefalo kind of.
beefalo,
right?
So you
Yeah.
kind of get some that are like, this guy's a little,
Yeah.
Not
off.
as big.
Yeah.
And then you get some like I
Like
think
a stocked trout. You're just like, its head is
yeah,
kind of shaped different.
That's
Yeah.
different. Why is its colors a little off? I'm gonna eat it no matter what.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it might
it's-
taste a little
it's
better.
good,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's a pretty awesome thing to be able to like take apart an animal like
Of
that.
course.
Just
Of course.
you get a lot of meat. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of meat in the years in the past.
Do you cool it? The meat? Do you refrigerate it? I mean,
Yes.
that's a lot of meat for 8 people. You can't. It's not dinner.
Yeah. So typically, most of the students, they come with coolers, and then they fill
Okay.
their coolers with various cuts of meat. I've done it in the past. I just throw it in a cooler and then bring it home, and then my sons and my girlfriend, we just sit and butcher it all out. We burger it, steak it,
Steak party.
Yeah, just kind of start
That's great. That's great.
packaging it up, and I have 2 teenage boys, so it's like, what's for dinner? It's like, it's meat.
It's meat. They're fine with it.
Like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
How much is there? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. 4 pounds. I'm
It
like,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
What road did you get it off of?
Exactly. We're familiar
You're like,
with it.
no. This one's from the ranch.
It works out.
That's great. Yeah, I've harvested a little bit. Not a lot though, but I worked at a feedlot down in Texas.
Right on.
One of the fat cows one time broke its leg, and so they couldn't put it on a truck. And so we just
Push it down.
a little far away.
Yeah.
And but they had a tractor there, and so then they held it up. So we were cutting from up top
fancy.
down.
Yeah.
That was a lot more fancy because also the gravity lets everything
Sure.
drop.
Sure.
Which is kind of nice
It's, I
because
mean,
you're not rolling around in it.
a way, not necessarily the way. I
Yeah.
mean, it's still
No.
you get the same outcomes.
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing is like you doing it.
Yeah.
Like, taking apart the animal and understanding the cuts and the meats and like you handling that
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah, just getting your hands dirty.
Yeah,
It's
and
awesome.
it takes so much longer than you think too. Because we had to do it at the end of the day after
Yeah.
we had all worked. But there was a few of us out there. So, but yeah, there's definitely a different feeling that you have.
sure.
And a different respect to
Absolutely.
convenience, I guess, that we have. When
Absolutely.
you go to the grocery store and you grab a couple of steaks and you're like, oh, this is actually extremely convenient.
Absolutely.
You know?
So do you ever get? I know, like I've hunted birds a little bit. And every once in a while, you have like a pellet from a shotgun.
Yeah.
Do you ever have a piece of flint break off when you're doing the
Sure.
primitive cleaning, and then when you're cooking, you kind of wash off a little
Yeah.
bit
So
of grit?
once you kind of get into the animal, you can see those projectile holes and the wound cavity, and you can kind of say, all right, if I shot an arrow or threw an atlatl dart and the tip broke, I
Right.
should find it in there. Sometimes I get more of like pine pitch, the actual glue that holds those things together, because hits a bone, it impacts, it kind of like breaks away.
So you do primitive
Yeah, absolutely.
style then?
Well, depending on, if it's an experiment with the university, but in the state of Colorado, you can't hunt with any primitive stone points. So I go down to Texas.
And you can do whatever you
can
want
do
in
whatever you
Texas.
want.
You can do whatever
pretty
you want.
wide open.
They're like, primitive what? All right,
Exactly.
yeah, it's
Come on
fine.
down.
Get out of here.
So
Yeah,
I
you can
stick
kill
to
whatever pigs you want down here.
it's the rules and regs. Like that's the one thing I always stick with. So
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I can still hunt with a primitive bow, homemade arrows. I just need to have a metal point.
Wow.
Which
So you just get a modern arrow point.
yeah, I just get like a little bear Zawicki, just 2 blades, 1-inch base.
Right.
And that's
And then you just shape your arrow so that that'll just fit on.
Yep,
whenever
yep, just
you're
on the tip of the
making it.
arrow. Most of them are glue-ons, so you just stick it on there.
But you use pitch.
Yeah, pitch. You can use high
pitch.
glue, various types of glues.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty cool.
I try to go as primitive as possible in accordance with those state rules and regs. So if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
listening, I do follow. the
I
rules.
follow the rules.
Yeah, no,
I
absolutely.
know.
I'm a big, I'm a big fish guy,
Yeah,
and I sometimes tell stories about like maybe trespassing to catch fish, but I always try to preface it with like, we did have the licenses,
yeah.
we were just trespassing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
So
it.
we were not poaching in a traditional sense.
I mean, Colorado's a great place for hunting and fishing, and I know really when August starts, that's like the best time because it's marmot season. Those little whistle pigs. So I like to go up in the high elevations and hunt marmot. You can take 10 of them.
Wow.
And you eat them. They're absolutely delicious.
I didn't know you could. I didn't know people hunted and ate them.
Oh
But
yeah.
it makes sense. They're like a big. I mean, they look like a big like rabbit.
He's ready
Yeah,
for
it
it.
looks like a big groundhog.
It looks like a big groundhog.
But
Yeah.
those, they're eating flowers and mosses and lichens and small grasses, so they're not like getting into the nasty stuff.
Yeah.
And you can go up there, shoot those.
Really?
Absolutely, make great like gloves and pouches, and
Yeah, because
they're
nice
delicious.
and they look very furry. I mean,
They are.
anything up in the high altitude is probably going to have
Absolutely.
nice
Some
downy.
fat and fur. And like how you can cook them is you can like burn all the hair off, scrape out the follicles, slice open right between their legs, right above their anus, and then pull out all the guts, pack them with rocks, close them up. And those rocks, you heat them up in a fire, and then that marmot will cook from the inside
Really?
out to its skin, and all that fat that's around it kind of melts,
Dang.
and you just pull it apart. and
I
eat
never
it.
thought that someone would make marmot sound so appetizing.
It's delicious.
That's
It's
wild.
absolutely
I know it doesn't
delicious.
sound
Is that a
good.
practice that people use with pigs too? Is it like similar to like?
Yeah, I mean they'll.
Like
I,
if they.
I'm not sure about the hot rocks with pigs, but
Okay.
I know they'll do a lot of. They'll bury them in the ground,
Right.
but it has that layer of fat on there, and once
Right.
it kind of melts,
Interesting, and it just melts it
the
from the
bit.
inside.
Yeah, it's really
wild.
really good. It's really good. It's actually a
Dang.
practice that they do highly, quite frequently in like Mongolia and the upper steppes,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of wood, so they do create a fire. They burn as much wood as they can find, and they heat up the rocks because a rock is a high thermal density material. It
Yeah,
will,
and then it just keeps cooking.
it keeps
after
kind
the
of
fire.
cooking,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Oh,
away you go.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I always worry about that kind of like when I think of like say there was something was to happen like kind of post-apocalyptic situation. One of my things. All right, relax there. Not all of us are gonna survive. Not all of us have anything to trade like knowledge. Elliot does. He's decided his knowledge will be
I feel
very
the same way.
tradable.
I'm like,
That's
I'm
what he.
a
That's
little bit of a primitivist, like politically,
yeah.
anarcho-primitivism.
I got you.
But yeah, it's cooking sometimes that worries me. Like that's one of the things that I think about is like I don't know if
more
I know how to
work it would
cook
be.
enough things
Like
in
if
general.
You had to cook over a fire, or just in
Like-
general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
If you
actually
didn't have cans of
honestly
corn.
that's one of the things that I'd like if I could take a class of
Yeah.
like cooking
campfire
cooking, but like not like beans in a can.
Yeah, I'll bring
Yeah?
you guys out.
All
I'll
right,
show you.
perfect.
Yeah, you just have to tape it because it'll be probably.
I just feel
it'll
like
pretty funny.
I'd be the person who's like has like this abundance of like somehow like there's animals running everywhere, and it's not even like that I can't kill them. Is that I have absolutely no idea how to eat
don't know
them.
what to
It's
do.
true.
You know?
Well, I mean, like one of the things, like people always stock up on like bread and milk and eggs, and those aren't bad. But like something as simple as flour, what can you do
Flour.
with flour?
Right.
And like in the bush, I always bring flour, just a jar of flour, add some garlic salt to it, maybe just some natural garlics,
Right.
and then I turn them into ash cakes. And ash cakes are essentially little
I don't even
pieces
know
of
what the hell
bread.
that is.
You take your flour,
Yeah.
add a little water, make little patties, flatten them out.
Yeah.
And then in your fire, you let it burn down to its ashes, and you throw those little cakes in the ashes, and it heats those up, and then essentially you have like little naan or little pieces of bread.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you add some seasonings to it, it's absolutely with some duck fat or for like fresh squirrel meat or something.
Right.
Pita.
It's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See, I would be the
it's just-
person you find, and they're like, "Well, she had a bunch of flour. Why did she just eat all the? She just ate the
looking
flour.
like a
And there's just
hardcore
flour
coke
all over,
addict,
I'm like, that, like this." And they're like, "What happened?" They're like, "She just couldn't figure out how food works." Yes.
No, bush cooking is important though. I mean, even like with fish.
Yeah.
I mean, you could throw fish in the coals,
Sure.
skewer it, stuff it with purslane and onions and all sorts of stuff you can find out there. Like in the book, I have recipes.
Okay.
Like squirrel tacos and raccoon.
Squirrel
And they're phenomenal. They really
I
are.
love that.
Marmot stew.
Yeah.
I remember growing
It's
up, we had a really old The Joy of Cooking.
Okay.
And,
They have some stuff in there.
well,
Have
and in
you
the
seen the
older
book?
one, and I remember
think
even using it because it had a whole section
It tells
on
you how
Wild
to
Game.
of games.
cut everything.
Yeah.
Because this was like, I guess this was when it was from maybe the 50s and the 60s when that was a more common kitchen fare.
For sure.
So it had like little diagrams of like, oh, this is how you do
How to cut up rabbits
beaver
and stuff like that.
and and it had
Beaver
a couple
and stuff.
recipes for like beaver and like muskrat.
Yeah,
and
she
stuff
kind
like
of put
that.
everything in there. It's wild because I think when you see the book, it doesn't look like it would be.
Oh,
Yeah.
we
You
had
know,
one
it
that's
doesn't
like a
look.
brick, you
If,
know?
if somebody wrote that book today, it would just be in camo. The whole book would just be in camo, and then people would be like, "Oh, that's the book that I need." But
That's
yeah,
what's
she
up.
had everything.
It had that border, like a checker, not like
Yes,
I know
yes,
the
yeah.
Oh
My
yeah, that was like
grandmother
the
had it.
Bible, like the cooking Bible. Like
Well,
at
not the
my
Bible
house,
in,
you know?
in
Yeah,
Alabama.
we
I
didn't.
think that you guys had a regular Bible.
We had a regular, we had a Bible too. My parents were really very unreligious for
Yeah.
Alabama standards. But my dad, anytime it was like a new cooking situation, even like I remember when the internet was around and we would like have a recipe or whatever, my dad would be like, well,
If
I
it's
gotta-
not from the Joy of Cooking.
yeah, if it
it's
goes
not
against the
right.
joy of cooking, then
Yeah,
you
Doesn't
know,
count.
It's
Good
not.
luck. you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of history to that. I mean, you got to think all of our grandparents, they were still canning foods and
Right.
smoking meats, and that's how they preserved a lot of their foods. And hunting was still
Canning
very,
foods. Do you
That's
can
what-
foods? Do you do that?
I
at home?
don't.
It's a wild thing. I watch that on TikTok too.
Yeah,
It's bizarre.
it's a smart thing. It's
yeah.
it's like with my girlfriend, she's into medicinal plants. She's really great
Mm-hmm.
with medicinal plants and teas and tinctures, making soaps and breads and butters.
Yeah, we
And-
get it. You live in Boulder. Yeah. You
She's
guys
from
are
Texas,
a
though.
very Boulder couple, just so you know.
All right, guilty.
He comes back with a buffalo hide and like a bunch of meat. And she's like, "I've got tea. Don't worry." Yeah, she cooks it. Yes, I mean, yeah, we get it. We get it.
I do what I do,
But so does she do some preserving with that then? Does she do more?
Yeah, so she's gets into various sorts of like preserving with the medicinal plants. So like I came back from the Amazon, had a parasite. She whipped up this like 3-day tea. I
Wild.
drank it down, killed the parasite. So she's very savvy with.
She might be more handy than
And you
you.
found
She
it
is.
worked?
I mean, she
really-
could fix the
Oh, yeah.
inside.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's what I always say because
Totally.
like I'm a big medicinal plant guy. Insert weed joke here, but
She's kind. Yeah.
but we talked a little before we started recording. Like I have some medicinal plant books, and
Yeah.
I've worked a lot as like a botanist or like as a botanist assistant because just as a field scientist, that's just a good skill to have, and that's something that I always tell talk about with people is if we ever do get into an apocalyptic situation, like I feel like that skill is my most valuable.
Absolutely.
And I have friends that are great hunters and have guns and stuff, but it's like if you get like a parasite, if you get an infection, like
Bingo.
you're
That's
gonna have to
wild.
probably
You're gonna-
come to me.
That's your
can't-
ticket.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a
Yeah.
ticket to
Yeah.
like join that community.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have your ticket, you're
What
kind of
is it?
like
Yeah, what-
you're just eating food and
yeah.
taking meds. You know.
Yeah.
You're left
yeah.
to.
I mean,
to
I know
scavenge.
when COVID kicked off, like my boys and I every kind of like late December, kind of like around that Christmas, we go out and we collect usnea, which
Yeah.
is the old man's beard that's hanging off the trees, and you work that into a tincture, 70% alcohol. That does the actual extract.
Wow.
And then you pour that out, the alcohol out, and then you use that alcohol usnea mixture as something that helps with like cold and flu and sinus.
Oh, you drink it.
You
you
put
do
it
like
like
a
a,
drop.
Like a
little
drop- okay,
dropper.
like a tincture. Okay,
You could
okay,
throw it
yeah.
into a tea,
Yeah.
and like it's absolutely phenomenal. So
Wild.
like that was our COVID med. Never needed anything else. We just
Right.
utilized that, and
You just went and got a little more, and that's
Yeah.
that's
Smart.
like
Crazy.
similar to because in the South they have like
Yeah, I'm
the
still laying.
Spanish
I just want you guys
moss.
to know I'm still laying on the ground with flour all over me. I know. They're like, how did she die? She just ate so much flour.
Well,
Why did she eat all the flour?
Flour can you have to cook it too.
Sure.
It's a little known fact about flour.
Okay, well, again,
Is that
in this scenario, I'm uneducated in
flour.
everything.
She has 5 pounds of flour.
Yeah.
That's it.
I stocked up. I didn't know how to deal with the rest of it.
one of the things I'm doing actually, I'm growing for the first time in my garden. I'm growing flour,
Smart.
and I want to try to go through the process of turning it
Oh,
all the
into
way
Milling
into
it
bread.
and-
Wow,
Of
yeah.
winnowing it, and I think I'll probably use some technology. I don't think I'm going to quite go
Yeah.
Stone Age, but
You should. Well, like peasant bread. That's the easiest bread to make. Yeast,
really?
Yeast and flour and salt.
Oh,
No
there
eggs,
you
no
go.
nothing, and it's just
Yeah.
You
But
add
you
it
still
all.
have to get the flour. You know,
You have to, yes, you absolutely need the
at least
flour.
smashed up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
But I don't know. I grew flour last year, and I thought that I would try to do that, but I was just too busy.
Yeah.
And then I have chickens, so I ended up just.
He also has ADHD,
Smart.
which will
I
be a
just
problem
chopped
in
it.
post-apocalyptic. The ADHD might kick in. Okay,
That's what'll kill
Yes,
me. I'll
yeah.
just be like, I'm bored. Let's go wander around.
I know.
Like, he's got stuff.
I know. I forgot to think about that. That we'll all be in survival mode. Like we have to pay
Just forget to
attention all the
lock my
time,
stuff
but we
up.
still have ADHD present. No meds to pay attention to the
This is something
making the
interesting.
flour.
That's it. That's true.
That you've maybe heard about this. Have you
Yeah.
heard about the tribal ADHD studies that they've done?
Like
Yeah.
as of recently.
This was somewhat recent, but basically like I guess probably a sociologist, but they
Okay.
kind of hypothesized where ADHD kind of came from and
Yeah.
the biological, why is it still around?
Oh, okay. I think
So
I know
you
what
maybe
you're
have
talking
heard,
about. Yeah, go on.
But basically, they kind of hypothesized and they looked at some of the skill sets that ADHD people had, and they kind of theorized that, they would stay up late, or they would maybe keep that late night watch,
Firewatch.
that kind of a thing. And then they basically found some like tribes, the few that are left, and they were able to figure out a way to test if they had ADHD without using language. So they developed this really rudimentary ADHD test that was kind of like, I guess just pictures. I don't
Yeah.
know. I didn't really read the study that detailed. but-
Because he has
Read the
ADHD.
title. Yeah,
He didn't read the study. That's why. That's how you know.
That was perfect.
But basically, they kind of hypothesized that people with ADHD would have had status in a tribal society because they would have had like a unique skill set.
Gotcha.
And then basically, they more or less proved it. They found that the people that had ADHD by their test that still lived in these tribal societies had more status,
Okay.
were eating more calories, and
Gotcha.
that sort of a thing. Because
Interesting.
And that was really where it came from. Was that they did a night watch. They stayed up a little bit later.
Yeah.
And that they were better foragers. I guess probably because of the
Attention to detail.
attention to detail and
Yeah.
then the hyper focus
Yeah.
of getting on a patch or finding and being like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what you want.
let's keep going.
Right.
Let's look around closer.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to research.
Are
that.
you a night watcher?
I mean, yes. At
Yeah?
times, like I'm usually I like to take a nap every once in a while. I'm a big
Okay.
advocate of sleeping when you're tired. You should never like not do that.
Except for me.
Was he
Do you-
too?
I'm
You sleep?
narcoleptic.
Do you?
He's narcoleptic.
You fall
Yeah.
asleep.
So I'm always tired.
Yeah, that's important though. Sleeping is healing.
But you're
That's-
right. But honestly, one of the things is that stopped me from having like it being debilitating was sleeping when I was tired.
Bingo.
So like before I came here,
Took a nap.
I took a 20-minute nap,
Yeah.
and then I took a shower, and then I came here.
Yeah, Lizzie
I'm a
sometimes
huge
jokes.
advocate for that.
Instead of pushing through it and then being tired in the interview.
Exactly.
you
Because
know?
we've been told from a day one, wake up, stay awake. You got to do this. You got to do this.
Yeah,
And,
lights,
like,
all these things.
Well,
Right?
I wrote my first book, Scavenger. And one of my key things was when you're tired, you sleep.
Right.
It is your body telling you, like, hey, you know what? We need 20, we need 30.
Right.
And I can do that. I can take a 20-minute nap and then wake up and be like, fuck, I'm ready to rock and roll for the
Right. Next thing,
like,
gonna go
3 days.
fishing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
It's
Wild.
just the thing.
Yeah. No, I
agree.
believe that. I do
I've always
believe
been
that.
a night owl. I'm not very good at napping though. Pretty bad napper.
All right.
But also, if you're out doing what he's doing, you might, you know what I
That's
mean?
true. I'd
Like
probably
if
be
you were
better at
out on the
napping.
water all day or something
Sure.
like that, and you were fishing
Like
and you were
if I got a fire going, I'm like, oh, I've got fresh water, I've got a good shelter.
Right.
I'm out. You know,
Right.
and you just take a nap. My thing is I wake up early. I'm like a very early riser, and that's just maybe like some of the military and always like working probably not the best jobs like growing up, you know.
Right.
Yeah, you
It's
always
not
had
like
to
I
wake
couldn't
up at 4 in the morning,
You know, I'm not like a
blue
cash
collar or
register
something.
guy. It's like
Yeah.
work
Right.
at a car wash or cut grass. And I think that's just always been
it's a
my thing.
habit too.
Yeah.
And I even noticed too, like if I have a certain type of job, especially if it's kind of like more of a 9 to 5, when I get off at 5, I was doing a remote job at one point and I would sleep from 5 to like 6:15.
There you go.
And then I'd wake up, shower, and I'd be at a show by 7:30. Gosh. So it was like I had to do it though, because then it would be dangerous if I didn't.
For sure.
But my body really clocked in on that, and now I don't have as much of that schedule, so it's a little. Sometimes I just have to let myself, like I have to put myself to sleep.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, you've got until from 2 to 3 to sleep.
Get it done.
And then we got something else, and I will. I have an average time of 2.5 minutes to fall asleep and 5 minutes to hit REM.
Do you use like aids or aids? Any aids?
Do I have AIDS? You don't have to have that anymore, you know.
I meant like animal sounds or rolling slow. That was. I apologize, everyone, for that.
No, I remember when
You know what I mean, like those sleep aids.
I don't.
I got AIDS from sleeping.
I know.
No, when me and Lizzie were on the road.
No, I don't need anything. Right. I literally need nothing. I need zero
like,
things.
Sleep.
Yeah.
When me and Lizzie were on the road, I remember we got back from shows in Texas. We were in Austin, and our hotel was a little bit outside of town. And we got back, and I was like, I'm going to call my girlfriend real quick, tell her goodnight. And I talked in the parking lot for like 5 minutes. And then when I came upstairs, the lights were all on, and Lizzie was just all clothes on. Like it wasn't even, I hadn't even been drinking really, just out.
Yeah. I hadn't been drinking.
So that's,
but that
wasn't it. Because when I used to drink, I would do that all the time.
Yeah.
That's probably the only time when I would nap, more of a pass out back when I drink.
If you rock me to sleep, that like if you put me in the car and it's like movement, or the plane, like if there's turbulence, that's a pretty key.
You're out.
I'm out.
That's how I am.
Yeah.
I could like get on a plane. Like we flew to New York. I got on the plane.
Yeah.
My girlfriend, my son were like, we're gonna have a good flight, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I'm gonna like.
Ding. Goodbye.
I was just out. We woke up. I'm like, look, it's the Empire State. I had no idea. Like, do they come with the drinks? I'm really dry.
Well, it's probably a comfortable situation for you too, because you're also like, I don't have any control in this, right?
Very true.
Like I'm out of control in this. I know that I'd wake up if something bad happened, right?
Yeah.
But also like somebody else is flying, we're hanging out. Let's just get there, you know? So there's kind of a, you know, I think mentally, you kind of just chill a little bit.
I'm not good at I can sleep on planes off sometimes, but I'm getting better at sleeping. But for me, I was just so angry hearing both of you guys talk about how fast you fall asleep. I would kill
his is
him
like
fall
his is
asleep
more
fast.
like trauma from being in the Marine, and mine is genetic because it's shitty genes. They're not like great things.
I still hate you guys for it.
I did listen. Oh, I will say I did listen to you on a podcast before this because I wanted to know a little bit more about you. And one of the things that you said I found so interesting was that you had read some sort of study about how sleeping with dogs has like evolved us more. Yeah. And I found that so fascinating. Yeah. Because I love dogs.
See,
and I have dogs.
True, though.
And they've always slept with me, and there's something about it that like even especially with camping, like taking the dogs with you and they lay next to you, like it's not just the fact that they get to hike. There is something about it that like makes you feel safe.
Absolutely.
So they're gonna say something.
They really. My dog Finn. So I pulled
He's
him.
the star, by the way. He's the star of your Instagram.
He's pretty awesome. He's cool. He was he was a roadkill. Like he was eating roadkill. I was like, I like roadkill. Let's be friends.
Like, you like squirrel? I like squirrel.
Let's do this.
We should be friends.
And it was probably the simplest relationship, but like we'll go out in the bush, and I know typically during the day if I'm doing things, he's kind of like laying in the shade catching his Z's.
Yeah, of course.
As soon as the lights go out, I crawl in there, and he is just he'll come back and forth, but he'll hear something,
right?
And he's out looking.
He's playing on his phone.
He's out there just trying to figure out what it is, how it is, and he comes back and forth. And usually, I don't wake up, but sometimes, like if we're like snuggled under like a caribou hide,
right,
and then he takes off, he brings the hide with him. Then I'm like, God, why is
this right? He's like, wake up, dude! Come on.
He's a good dog.
Something's wrong.
But that whole study, it's so there's a field called ethnocynology. There's a guy named David Ian Howe. I don't know why I say his name like he's an assassin.
David Ian Howe.
David Ian Howe.
Yeah, watch out.
He is an ethnocynologist, and he studies the relationship between man and dogs. And he's actually he does stand-up comedy too. He'd be an interesting guy for you guys to have on.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Up in Wyoming right now. Lives out of a bus.
Yeah.
But he just knows
cornering the Wyoming comedy market.
Right, cornering it with all those Wyoming comedians.
The Wyomings. But he goes into the weeds on the history of man and dog, and one of those things is that as we slowly, kind of domesticated dogs, that relationship, they were all wolves. They protected us at night, and we were able to sleep more, enhancing brain function and rest, decision making, creativity, and that is still ingrained into us,
Today.
Ultimately today.
Yeah.
You have a dog, you could watch like any scary movie and be like under the covers and be like, where's my dog? He's over there.
Yeah.
You just feel better.
You do feel better. I totally agree. And I also fed my dogs. So I was in the pet food industry for a little while.
Right on.
And I fed them raw. And a lot of the kind of talk about it when people start to get you into raw is that story of being like, dogs came, we were set up. We didn't eat the bone, right?
Yeah.
We didn't eat the bones of animals. We ate maybe some of the insides, but there was always scraps.
Yeah.
And we would throw those outside, and then the dogs would come in to get those scraps, and that's how we started to create this bond. And that's kind of like the start of like trying to feed your dog raw. You know what I mean?
It's we killed the more aggressive wolves.
Right.
Because they were aggressive. Those that were a little bit more compatible, the puppies, the young, they kind of came around. You could hand feed them, and then something would key into them. They take off, and then there was that kind of like,
Right.
they hear something that I'm not hearing. It's some sort of indication, warning. Come
And
around.
they're pack animals.
They're pack,
right?
animals,
They're pack animals.
same as us. And that relationship just formed into Chihuahuas.
Right, yeah, with Chihuahuas, exactly.
Well, that's fascinating.
Yeah, not every dog is a Finn, okay?
no.
Not every dog.
That's good. That's good.
I just did comedy at the Medieval Festival last weekend. And,
Like, did you dress with swords and armor? And shit?
He had a
drinking
horn.
horn.
He had a
Did you?
drinking horn.
Hell yeah.
I should have gone a little. I feel like every year I get a little bit more stuff, so maybe next year I'll be more decked out. But I was doing research because I was trying to write some medieval jokes.
Nice.
And it's weird all the jobs that dogs had in medieval times. So I read that they had dogs that would turn spits. They had like a lot of the small dogs were bred to basically just walk in hamster wheels.
No shit.
To like
And they look like hamsters.
and it would either turn a spit or it would
Yeah.
like lift something. It was like
Yeah.
castle tech. And then the other small dog function, which Chihuahuas made me think of this because it was they would be hand warmers.
Yeah, so some of like
So they would just like live on the lap of a rich person, so they wouldn't get cold, basically.
like the Malteses and
Yeah,
stuff like
with
that,
the
with the
fur, that
fur,
makes sense.
they would use them as lap dogs. Like that's why they kind of call them lap
lap
dogs, is
dogs.
because they would use them to
Just
keep
put their
people
hands
warm.
underneath and then
my
they
God.
go.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah, and also little dogs, and most of your terriers, even
Jack
technically pit bull
Russells.
terriers technically do the same thing, which is why they bark all the time. Is that they keep rats out and
Yeah,
stuff like
rats
that.
and vermin.
They, hunters, but I just thought that was a funny. I tried to do a bit about it, but it was too much background. But it was like that's a funny shakeout if you're a small dog. Like you either have the best life or manual labor.
Yeah, manual labor all the time.
That's true.
Yeah, you're either just getting pet all the time,
Near a
or you're
fire.
walking in a circle.
That's it.
But they use them as draft too, right? Like some of the bigger dogs were used as draft. I mean,
I
you
think
can
like
fit them in different places than horses.
I think like Anatolian Shepherds, those big mountain dogs. Like we have Great Pyrenees as well. May,
right, livestock guardian dogs.
livestock guardian. We got
Yeah.
her from St. Croix. We were down there, and like my version of the story is we were driving. My girlfriend saw a bunch of dogs on the side of the road in this guy's car and was like, "Oh, we need to rescue one and bring it back." And I was like, we're on vacation. No.
Yeah, we shouldn't do that. Yeah,
so
yeah.
we brought it back, and she had parvo. We went through all this sort of stuff.
Oh,
but
gosh.
she's a dog. Like I could let all the dogs out. She likes to stay out there and just kind of scan.
She scans.
Look around.
watch.
Finn comes out and kind of does his thing. Or everything's cool. I'm going back and
Yeah.
But they have this routine. They both. The very first time I brought her, well, not the very first time, but when she was more mature, I brought her out in the bush. We were in the bottom of a valley. Finn was in the bottom. I was halfway up. May is her name. She was coming up to the top.
Right.
She got all the way up to the top and just started losing her mind at this ridge.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, something's it's a big old bear, a cat, something up there is driving
Right.
her. Different sort of bark. Got up there. And as soon as I crested the top, she's barking at this big bull moose. And I was like, oh my God. So
damn.
she's losing it.
Now you gotta fight a moose.
I know. And I'm like,
I mean, you look like you can fight a moose.
meat in the freezer. But then Finn comes ripping up the mountain, just
Yeah.
losing his mind, and
Yeah.
then they both drive this moose off. And
Yeah.
I'm giving them a recall to come back, and they both came back like wagging tails. You guys are the best.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, you mean we protected you, Dad? Okay."
We get to bark together.
Right? I know. Well, I mean, they use the Great Pyrenees, but even the Anatolian Shepherd. Man, that's not good for the only knowledge that I have, which is dogs. I can't pronounce them. Great. I better become a good comedian. I'm having an existential crisis. Staying with goats and sheep and things like that. And my best friend's up in Nevada, and they have goats. So they have a Great Pyrenees with them. And he
Dog.
all the time. She's with them all the time.
we don't have
Doesn't
a
leave
dog.
them.
Smart.
But it takes care of them. I mean, even wild dogs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not, you don't even have to worry about like just coyotes coming in.
Ferals.
Sometimes there's just dogs that are roaming around. They would take out a whole herd of goats, you know?
Dogs are
And
good.
since they were puppies, I
Makes
keep
sense.
them.
You know,
Yeah.
we don't have a dog, and we've had people stay and house sit that had a dog, and I've noticed that it helps. Like, we have chickens, and even just with a dog staying at the house, like, we have less predator problems for a little while after, just from it, like, peeing and, like, getting its smell. And then I don't see as many raccoons and stuff trying to eat the chicken food for, like, maybe
Because
a
they
week.
smell it. They smell
week
it.
or
Same
so
thing with
after.
the cats and stuff like
Yeah.
that too. Like if you can keep animals out there.
Which we have we have a pretty good set of neighborhood cats.
He has a
that are-
bird. That's what he has. He has a
My
parrot.
girlfriend has a parrot.
A parrot.
Yeah.
Oh.
Less.
Yeah, not as safe.
What do you do?
Yeah, not as
What do you
safe.
do with a parrot? Yeah, I don't know.
She still doesn't know.
I do
They've
get a
been
lot of
together for
feathers.
6 years.
I get a lot
he
of
has no
feathers,
idea what they
so
do.
That's
yeah.
cool. Feathers. No,
Yeah, to fish with.
She's a little bit of a honestly though, she also, you know, they're less of a herd animal and they're more like monogamous.
Yeah.
So she's like super cute with my girlfriend, and they're, you know, they definitely have like a bond.
That's cool though.
His girlfriend got that parrot when she was 11 years old,
Like
which
10
is
years old, yeah, 10 or
not
11.
a
Holy
gift
cow.
for a child
Yeah.
because they also live until they're like
live forever.
90.
Yes.
They live literally forever.
Which when I tell dog people that, they're like, man, I wish my dog would live like 60 years.
Yeah,
And
sure,
it's like,
because I
yeah,
picked my
but-
dog.
Oh my god.
But but she does actually a pretty good job of, like, I often joke, but if we ever did have like an intruder, she would definitely
No, she would tell you.
Give
freak
alarm.
out. Like, she'll
Yeah.
scream.
She'll scream. She also masturbates too.
Yeah, she masturbates.
What?
The parrot masturbates, yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I know. We'll
does
show
that-
you video
yeah,
How does
after.
that happen?
Yeah, we'll show you a
Like,
video.
one
Yeah,
wing comes like this.
yeah.
She uses her
She
wing.
does
She
the whole wing.
straddles her wing. And
I mean,
Yeah,
grinds
she
on
just
it.
grinds. It's just friction. That's all it is. She has fun.
It's weird.
She's
And
30 years old. She's allowed to do whatever she wants. It's not,
mean,
she's
feathers
not
are
a child.
you know.
it's weird though, because I've talked to a lot of different people about this, and I don't know if it's known to science that a female parrot masturbates.
It's got to be known to science. There's people that have 1 million birds.
I mean, I'd make some calls.
Yeah, you
I
should
mean,
call them. Yeah,
I'm just spitballing
yeah.
here, but that could be
He's got a
something
good
interesting.
TikTok. We could have a good TikTok. All right, Elliot? We could get some more viewers
That's what I need
for
to do.
WolfHawk.
Get the
We just
parrot
posted a
little
couple of
more
those
famous.
videos for people.
I do
you
get a lot
seen-
of feathers though, so
Have
that's
you
a
seen the
good
guys
deal.
with hawks? I feel like you would have a
Yeah, the
hawk.
falconry.
Yeah.
No, I would love one, but there's like a really lengthy process.
It's
That's
in Colorado especially. I know
Yeah.
it's like you have to get on the list to even get the license.
Exactly.
It's like a
and then to
10-year
trap your hawk, and then
Yeah.
to train it, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
We should go
oh,
out to Nevada because I think there's some out there, and my
Some
best friend might
falconry?
know some people that have.
Oh,
them.
like it's just less.
That'd be
just to
cool.
go check it out.
Less
Just to be,
regulated.
it's like remember the movie Beastmaster?
Yeah.
Like just be like, "Ah," and it just flies out and like retrieves.
Well, because they also
food.
have to get food for the younger ones too. So
Makes
like
sense.
they're always hunting.
That makes
so the
sense.
ones that are older that they know can hunt still has to provide food for the younger ones that they're teaching how to hunt.
See,
so they're just always hunting
that's
around, which
cool.
is wild.
That's
just
so
like
cool.
pick up little rabbits
That's
and
what
stuff.
I mean.
I mean that's
It's good
intense,
eating. It's
dude.
good food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
dude.
falconry is dope.
Yeah.
The parrot could not be trained. The parrot doesn't even like to fly. She can fly, and she hates doing it.
Yeah. Well, your question again. What do you do with the parrot?
It's a masturbating
Yeah,
parrot. I mean, that's kind of a fun
masturbates,
thing.
yeah.
It's,
It
She
hangs
can
out with
say
the
some
chickens
phrases.
sometimes. It goes outside and watches the chickens.
She can say a couple phrases.
Yeah, she's got a couple.
But it's
phrases.
funny that, and to me, it's the funniest thing that the bird refuses to fly. Like,
Yeah.
like even like if you like throw her, she'll do the bare minimum just to get to the ground
just
without.
softens the land.
So like,
so annoying.
and then she'll be out of breath. I think she's just fat. She's just,
Oh yeah,
she's
yeah.
like,
She's like me if I was a parrot. She has flour all over her face.
Crawling around.
Man, that's cool though.
Yeah, that's good. Animals are fun though.
They
Do you guys
are.
have more animals?
No, I mean we have some like rabbits, but I usually shoot those and eat them. So they're
Wild
like,
rabbits or
yeah,
your
wild
rabbits?
raccoons. I mean,
I thought you meant like your kid's pets.
oh no. Well, my son has a turtle,
Oh, cool.
and that's gonna live
forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
So that was a dumb
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
and
he
as
needs a
he's
pond somewhere.
he's 18, so he's going to like Europe, and he just
to
works
do
at a
it.
brewery. And he's been saving his money. So he's like, I'm just going to take off, go to Africa and Spain and
Here's
Portugal.
the turtle.
And I'm like,
Dad.
oh, cool. I'm like, turtle stays with your mom.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Not over here.
I can't
Because
do
you
it.
know why? If it
Yeah.
stays here,
Yeah,
Dad
yeah.
gets a new bowl and a meal.
Right? Oh, my God.
Can you make a turtle shell?
You're the
Make
kind
some
of dad you
rattles.
can't leave any pet with because they just turn into food.
That's it. It's everything's edible.
What kind of turtle is it?
It's like a box turtle,
Box
but it's like another species of box turtle.
Okay, yeah.
So he got it small, and now it's like this big, and
They get big.
So not much of
Yeah.
a meal,
Yeah.
so he doesn't have too much to worry about.
No,
yeah.
not.
Yeah, Dad, that's an appetizer.
Turtles are good to eat. I've had the bad experience of like killing a snapping turtle and it was full of eggs and then eating the eggs. So
yeah.
that was kind of an experience. But
Yeah,
like
that sounds weird.
you could cook a turtle in its own shell, which is kind of exciting, and like boil its
Right.
stuff. But like, I mean,
Wild.
I would eat it if I had to. That's why I always tell like with the dogs, I'm like, there's a hierarchy amongst the dogs.
Yeah.
Whatever one serves the least amount of purpose would be consumed first.
I thought about
Came
that
to it.
with the show Last of Us. Did you watch that?
I did. Yeah, we
Yeah.
watched it.
That was fun.
It was an interesting show.
Right? I mean, it's also like kind of based like part of the season is here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Supposedly in the actual game though, they go up to CSU. They don't go to CU.
Yeah.
Which is why they had the ram outside of it.
Okay, yeah.
They just had some
'Cause They were in Wyoming and then
Pay
took
for
the
the product
horses down.
placement.
That's right.
Yeah, they were in Wyoming, took the horses down, went to CSU, and then went to Loveland, and then came back.
'Cause
That
that
like
was, like-
camp was Loveland that they burnt down.
Okay, because if
Yeah.
that was really CSU, there's plenty of people up in Fort Collins be like, we're good.
Yeah,
Like,
we're fine.
we're solid.
Yeah,
you guys
yeah.
just leave us alone.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Maybe-
And there also might be
There's
a
some
monkey
good
running
homes.
around somewhere.
Good homestead-sized properties in Fort Collins.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Really, from Fort Collins all the way to Boulder,
Yeah,
like Longmont,
that west side?
that whole western kind of area. Yeah,
it's gorgeous over there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like it.
I guess that's what you would do, right? In that scenario, you go straight into the foothills.
I would go to where nobody else is, like into the mountains, the worst possible place. So if it actually
Right.
went off, like I have a piece of property in the Chihuahua Desert, right across from Mexico and Texas, and there's no life out there except, I mean, there's mule deer and black bear and stuff.
Right.
So there's life, but not
But
like
it's so remote.
it's really remote. Like
Right.
that's where I would go, and I would just be happy as a clam.
You're not Frank in that story that has like all the setup at his house.
Nothing that
and
I
puts
would
all the
admit on a-
wire up.
I would never admit it here because
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it's
right,
like
right, exactly.
people find out where I
Yeah,
live, and
right.
they're like,
Well, I also think,
Yeah,
I think
there'd
in
be
general,
wire.
Like, no matter what your school of thought, I think you got to at least get out of the city unless you're just
No, you got to get out of the city.
incredibly well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to go in the
like,
middle of nowhere.
barricaded.
I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Everything shuts down, services,
Yeah.
police, fire, all that stuff.
And I just
it's-
think
Can't trust people.
being in a population
Bingo.
center, exactly. When people start panicking, you don't want to be around
Yeah.
during that initial, oh, maybe the power's not coming back on. Like that panic, I think that's where most people.
People are also
No,
stupid.
people are irrational when they
What
panic.
was it like a year or two ago where people started freaking out about gas and they were putting it in like plastic bags?
Yeah.
And you were like, "What is happening? What
Yeah,
is
what's-
your brain doing?"
You don't drive anywhere. What's with all the gas? No, I love cutting my grass.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I know. What are
yeah.
you gonna do with bags of gas? Like you could sell it or something.
Yeah,
like
it's weird. People like I always call like that group of that population people.
Yeah,
those
that's
are your zombies.
Yes.
Those are the ones that are lifeless and don't think, they just respond and react
Right.
and that sort of kind of scenario. And for me, it's gather the stuff that I need, and we go to the mountains, and I have various caves and cave systems and locations where I'm like, I know there's food, water, shelter, all those
good.
sort of things. I know seasonally kind of how they are, and that's where I go, and
that makes sense.
that's it. And you
Yeah,
just-
that makes total sense.
You just go.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm somewhat torn because I have a good garden at my house, so it's like,
Yeah, but you can find a good garden
Well, what do you grow
out
in
where
your
he's
garden?
talking about.
I grow a lot of different things, but I do have a lot of things that store well. Potatoes,
Perfect, yeah.
winter squash,
Tubers.
Yeah, and actually I just got, which
But
I've
you
been
could
trying
take
to get one of
those
these
and
for
put
a
those
while.
somewhere else where you
Yeah.
could grow more of them.
Mountain
Right?
yams. That's
Right.
the best thing. I used to grow yams in the mountains.
Really?
Yeah, you take like a Japanese yam or a yam. You could grow them up there because that's kind of where they grow.
Yeah.
And I would put and this is not the best for forestry or
Yeah, I
anything
know.
like that. But you plant you split one, you plant them in there. You know you're going to get a certain yield. But I would just do it when I was roaming around, knowing that they would ultimately grow after one complete season.
Right.
They would start to populate.
That's
and
wild.
stuff.
Yeah, you wouldn't have enough food to make it.
What I just got though, I just got what I think is a very good survival crop, and I've been trying to get it for a long time. I got Jerusalem artichoke
Oh, okay.
from a friend. Do you
I don't
know
know what that
what
is.
Jerusalem artichoke is?
Yeah, there's a specific tincture with Jerusalem artichoke. It's the leaves that do. I think it's is it similar to like an artemisia? It kills internal bacteria
Oh.
and stuff like
Maybe
that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I just know that
Okay.
it's in the sunflower family.
Yeah,
and it has an
okay.
edible tuber.
Yeah.
And it's a very it's native to the U.S. and apparently it's one of the they've done they do yield studies.
Yeah.
And basically it's the highest yielding if you were to plant like a patch of it.
Sure.
Per square inch, per square
You
foot,
get
or
the
whatever.
biggest
you
juice
get
worth
the
the
most.
squeeze. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get
yeah,
the
yeah.
most of these
Yeah.
little tubers.
Did you
And
say
they're
the
like
Jews are worth
potatoes.
the squeeze? That's what it sounded like. Because it's a Jerusalem.
The juice is worth the squeeze.
So
I was trying to make a Jew joke when he said Jerusalem, and then my brain stopped working.
You're like, oh wait, I'm back with the Jewish joke.
And I was like, no, keep talking about this boring plant. Oh, it's great.
No,
I was
but
going to say,
No, it's
come
a
on,
cool-
Annika, keep giving it to me. But I was like, no, that's too dumb.
no, too much.
But yeah, I'm excited to plant it. Apparently, it kind of takes over. It's just a weed, so
Yeah.
No,
don't
I think you
plan
take all of your stuff and you throw it in a bag and you get out, because also you can't fish nearly as much as you can in the mountains,
also
and you
depends on
would
the
so you'd
nature
be but you would still be like your skill would not be used as much here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just feel like I just grab what can store,
Yeah.
grab the pumpkins,
Yeah.
and then you got the seeds already built in,
sure.
so you're good to go. And pumpkin patch, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
You can just kind of plant
Lay it
those
out.
in the wild.
You go from survive
Yeah.
to thrive, right? So survival is just getting by.
It's-
There-
Yeah.
It's the basic. Like, I've got food, I got water. Thrive is when I can start planting. I can build a bed, make a table, do these things. I kind of build into my comfort, my security, and
Have
my
a chair.
sanity. Have a chair. That's
Yeah, have a chair.
That's really
Yeah.
what you have is some of those thrival sort of things.
Just got to get over the hump.
But right off the bat is like survival mode. I need to
Right.
get safe, get secure, gather these resources, safeguard them, and get to wherever I need to go.
When I always think it's a little funny when people have like a big seed cache as a survival thing, because I do think that that's really functional, but see people that do that like they never gardened before, and it's
Yes.
like you're just gonna pick this up.
Yeah. Gardening's that's a thing.
It's
Like,
a skill
tough, right?
for
it
sure.
really is how to grow,
Yeah.
understand like water, the macro microbiota and soils. I mean, it's
And
Yeah.
I think about
No, I
too,
mean we have a garden. We have a garden at my house, and nothing's lived in there.
yeah.
For 4 years,
I
nothing
think too though about
has survived. I'm telling you,
Our soil is, I think our state soil is SEITZ.
Yeah.
SEITZ soil. And it's like
Uh-huh.
not the best soil to grow in, but a lot of our soils is like, overwashed from rivers and streams
Oh, that
and
makes
then
sense.
brought in. So it will foster growth in certain species, but like some of those more vegetable,
like
hardy
the normal
tubers,
things. Yeah.
it's a different sort of soil. So like if
takes
you were to
a while.
cache anything, I would cache bags of soil.
Right.
yeah.
That'd be your
Oh,
smartest
wow.
long-term thing to think about, because we'll have a normal growing season as we normally do, but it's the soil and like the fertilizer, compost, things like that are really going to give a small
Right.
garden quite a bit of
Yeah,
life.
and that's going to give you your abundance. Because fertilizer. That's what I think about sometimes too with my garden is that like, if something did happen, like I have rain barrels,
Perfect.
but if really everything went to shit, like I'd have
don't
to
last
figure
that long.
something out for
Yeah.
watering.
Yeah.
And as well as for fertilizer. I try to make as much of my own stuff, and I have my own compost, but to really get the big production, usually I buy bone meal and
Yeah.
and blood
Oh, I know
meal.
why I brought up Last of Us. Now that you're saying that, did you notice there was no dogs in that show?
They ate them all.
I know.
More importantly, they make
There
too
was
much
like
noise.
one. Yeah, they make too
Yeah.
much noise.
Yeah.
That was that when I made that realization, because they had that one German Shepherd
Yeah, okay.
that was like trying to like sniff out
That's when they were in that one town. I know what you're
Yeah,
talking-
and
yeah.
like was supposed to like sniff out if they had.
We're gonna put Last of Us spoilers
Stuff.
on this episode.
Yeah. If you haven't
no
seen it by
dogs.
now, though.
There was I think I was listening to a podcast or something like that about like survival situations and how you want to be quiet and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, and you want to make it look like the house is abandoned but stay in like one room or whatever. And then I was like, but the dogs, they're gonna bark. And I was like, oh, that's not why there's no dogs in that fucking show.
Because that's right when they got kind of captured by those people. And that
Right.
Snowy, and she was, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I feel like
Andy, your
dogs,
dog?
unless you have a big ol' herd that can really defend you, then I think
Yeah.
Yep.
probably not very useful in a
Yeah, or
modern
hiding,
apocalyptic event.
cows
you go out in
and
the
stuff like
woods.
that.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it
my friend
is.
was like, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
we have a bunch of cows, so we should be fine." And I go, "How are you gonna keep those cows?"
Yeah.
There's other people are gonna take those cows.
I'll take those cows.
You can't
Yeah.
protect all. You're gonna just
Absolutely.
spend your whole time protecting all of those cows.
Absolutely.
You're definitely not. Which is why rabbits, and I've always heard rabbits are really good.
I think rabbits are good. I mean, there's no fat on rabbits,
Right.
So you have that whole rabbit starvation. But like when you think about like food, you can't have just like a single source. That could be a protein, but then you
Yeah.
have to supplement it with, you
Yeah.
know,
Extra.
others, if you will. I always say fish first.
Fish first.
Always fish first. I mean, there's,
Yeah.
Yeah, me
there's-
too. That's always been my motto.
That's it. It's smart though.
That's- yeah,
you can
yeah.
see it in the water. It's easy to target and be like, this is this, this is this. Fish traps, fish weirs, fish spears, bows,
Stores
Yeah.
pretty well.
hooks. It stores well. You can air dry fish, which is very unique. I've air dried fish up in like the
I mean,
collegiates.
fish jerky.
Yeah, you just
love
put it up
that.
in the sun, and as long as it's windy out, it
Yeah.
just dries it, and it's perfectly preserved.
That's
you could
great.
throw some salt on there too to kind of like speed it up, but fish is a great thing.
Right.
For you can tan a fish hide. You can make fish leather by
Yeah,
like,
like an
salmon
eel.
Really?
and pike and stuff. You tan it the exact same way.
Wow.
That's
So you
pretty
can
cool. I
make
didn't know
fish
it was the
gloves.
same-
You make fish
same
gloves, yeah.
process.
Oh dang.
I actually studied fish farming in school.
Yeah.
So that would be my real skill set if I could get my hands on water.
Absolutely.
That's why you
That's
wouldn't be
really
useful.
where the
That's why
abundance
you
That'd be
wouldn't
smart.
stay in the
Yep.
city. Because eventually you would realize fast that the potatoes weren't
But potatoes
didn't
are good.
matter.
I
It was
love
you
potatoes.
I gotta get in there. You gotta get in. You gotta get in there and go
Potatoes for
start
the win,
fishing.
right?
But if you could
Yeah.
secure like one mountain reservoir
Yeah.
at a
One
decent
pond.
elevation, one pond,
Yeah.
you could totally, whether you start incorporating like tilapia, because I think that's a pretty standard fish.
Yeah, more
Right.
tropical fish.
More
though.
tropical fish, but don't
Yeah.
they do like some sort of thing where it's like hydroponics or
Yeah,
aquaponics or
aquaponics.
something?
Aquaponics,
You might be able to
yeah.
incorporate a system, and I've seen people do that in their backyards with like an old swimming pool.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
full of fish, and they circulate it.
They
and they're
start- That makes
100%
sense.
off grid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do not have aquaponics running currently in my garden, but I usually have like goldfish in my rain barrels, so I get a little bit of nutrients.
There you
that
go.
way.
Because that's also fertilizer too.
Yeah,
Right? The
so
plants
they
and
eat,
stuff like that
they
can be used as
fertilize,
fertilize.
cycle.
And then
They
the
keep
idea is
going.
that if you have a circular system, the idea is that the plants will eat all that excess nutrients, and then any water that like flows back
It's clean.
in is basically clean.
That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
But those systems are harder to run, which I'm a real low tech with all my shit.
Yeah.
Like I have a hose timer, that's about it.
Smart.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of talk, and I think in Europe it happens a lot more because in Europe and Asia, there's just more of a market for high value produce. So they're starting to do it commercially a lot in Europe because they can, but whatever vegetable you're growing has to be something that people are really, it's spices,
Spices,
it's
yeah.
herbs, it's
Herbs.
or maybe
Coriander.
lettuce if you're just producing a ton of it, because
That's
it
true.
has to be a high value thing because there's a lot of labor involved in keeping
sure.
everything.
See, I always focus on
running.
like roots and tubers, radishes, potatoes, onions,
That are in the ground.
garlics
Yeah.
that are in the ground. And then all of your kind of like herbs, because a lot of those herbs are awesome. Like oregano oil is probably one of the best things. It's antibacterial, fungal, microbial. It's absolutely great. So you have the ability to flavor foods. You have the
Yeah, yeah.
ability to season things. And then all those tubers, they hold really well in the ground. Based
Doesn't
on
even
what
help
you're
with
growing.
pain, like tooth pain and stuff like
think
that.
so.
Like if you dab it or like put it on. I feel like oregano.
I think
Where's your
oregano-
girlfriend? We'll call her.
I know. She's,
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
there's
you looked at me like
shit
I'm not
drying
the witch, okay?
No,
Ask
I'm the
her.
same. I have a little
I
apothecary.
can get the meat. She
Yeah,
knows.
That's it. She's medicine.
Yeah,
I meats.
yeah.
We do our thing.
That's it. That's a incredible
it's a-
match,
it's a
dude.
good recipe.
It's incredible match.
That's a great system.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Did you guys meet in Boulder?
No, so she signed up for a class of mine, a winter
Okay.
survival class, because I
Cool.
like to bring people out like in harsh conditions because it's the reality of it. And then it was full, so I put her on a waiting list. So she has
She's like, fuck this guy.
So she's got a pit bull husky, and that's what Finn is. He's like a
Yes.
pit bull husky, a Pitsky. So she's like, well, where do you bring your dog? And I was like, I bring him here, I bring him there.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'd love to go sometime. I'm like, so I sent her coordinates, which is always like my first dating criteria test.
Can they figure out coordinates?
Can they figure out coordinates? So she figured out the coordinates, and she's from Texas, so she showed up with like 4 or 5 knives, a pistol,
Jesus
her dog, and I was like, so
You're like, I'm in.
I was like, who are you?
Yeah, right?
I see you blazing. So we went on a couple hikes, and we just kind of hit it off from there. And
Incredible.
she's got elk tags, and she's all about
That's great.
kind of doing that kind of like, homesteading life, with 2 teenage sons, one that's taken off and one that's a freshman. I got a couple more years with him, and then we're probably going to retreat down to Texas or my place in New Mexico. I have a place in New
Right.
Mexico and Texas, and we'll just travel back and forth between those. And
That's
build,
great.
build up the properties. And
I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest key is having a place to go. So
Yeah.
like if you can snag up just even a single acre, you think about 1 acre of
1
land,
acre.
roughly 90 yards when you compare it to a football field.
Mm-hmm.
You could grow a crap ton and live on that and be totally self-sustainable.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're a
Totally.
good enough gardener, you can do it on
Less.
less.
Yeah,
If you
a whole lot less.
maybe not so much
Yeah.
here because our season's short.
So-
but
Yeah.
I'm not a good gardener, so maybe I need like 40 acres. I can't do it on one, but I could eventually figure it out.
Well, if you grow a certain thing and somebody else grows a certain thing,
Right,
then
now
have
you gotta
your
trade.
tradables. You start to create your tribe and your people, and like this is,
Mm-hmm.
keeping bees. I think that's another big thing.
Sure.
Pollinators are all your plants.
Yeah.
You get the honey. It's pretty self-sustaining aside from a little bit of sugar water.
Right.
Well, I think it's easy for us to think about too, because like early America definitely had that kind of cash crop system. So
Yeah.
I think it's pretty easy to imagine pretty quickly reverting to that of like, all right, well, hey, I have a
Absolutely.
big pumpkin patch. I've got,
Right.
I've got the herbs, and then you just
Trade 'em
trade
out. That's-
whoever can farm or
I like
whatever.
the meat.
you know?
Are you still doing your classes?
Yeah, I
still doing it?
still do a lot of classes.
Yeah?
I do a lot of like kind of private one-on-ones or small groups.
Okay.
If they get too big, aside from like a butchering class because it's 1,200
tough.
pound animal, I like couples, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever that case may be. But then it's like we're all a collective as far as
Right.
if it's a husband and wife going out, I know that they know each other. Sometimes I just don't like to bring 10 people out. You lose the intimacy.
Oh,
you
just
know,
like a random groups. Of
Random
people.
group.
Yeah.
8 people get it, 2 people are struggling, then all my attention goes to those that are struggling, and then those
Yeah.
people are missing
Right.
out. So I just try to bring it down. One-on-ones or just like that close knit, like 2 college buddies or 2 college girls, something.
That's
to that.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
and
yeah.
the juice is worth the squeeze in that sort of capacity because people really walk out with like
A lot of knowledge.
some intensity and like
And being able to ask the questions that they're thinking
Bingo.
about, but you don't have your back turned talking to somebody else and
Exactly.
going, all right, well, maybe
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
just look
dude,
it up
I-
later or whatever,
Exactly.
I guided last year in Rocky Mountain National Park, and I would do a hiking tour, and it was like always a nightmare because you could never get all people that are similar.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. There's never a group.
And
yeah.
they wouldn't
Yeah.
like book it for less than like 5 people, and I'm like, yo, you should just charge them a little more and do
it.
like a 5-person tour. They'd want there to
Mm-hmm.
be like a certain number to make it worthwhile for the company.
For
I
sure.
worked for.
Yeah.
But it was always like on the hiking tour days, I would get so many miles because eventually it'd be like, okay, there's some slow people, and I got to go to the front and then back and front.
And you kind of have to
and
track
front
it
and
too,
back.
Yeah.
right? Like you have to, like at the beginning, the very beginning, when you start talking to people, you like once you get good at
Oh
it,
yeah,
you can
and I
track.
knew that day I had a dude with
Engage, be like, this
Who's-
one's going to be a problem.
Right.
This one's going to be.
Well, and I had
Yeah.
a guy with a marathon
Yeah.
finisher shirt on one of my hikes, and I'm
Oh,
like, okay,
geez.
this guy's gonna fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, pretty much, I just told him, I was like, okay, like, this is our next turn. Just wait for me there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to, like, and one was like a lake hike in the park. So I was like, yo, if you want to get some extra miles, like, just go around the lake at the end or something. You know?
Yeah. There you go.
From like that like guiding standpoint, then you get like nervous. Like, what happens if something happens to them? They twist an ankle. They're doing
Yeah,
something
yeah.
off of their own.
Right.
It's that's on you. So it's like, you just. I've been doing large classes in the past, and I've just really kind of broke them down into smaller classes.
Yeah.
I personally enjoy it more.
You have to enjoy them, right? Because
Yeah.
when there's too many
Yeah.
people, you're not enjoying it.
Oh, it's
anymore.
scary.
It's-
And like the bison thing was easy because it was.
It's huge.
Yeah, we're not really going
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah.
We're making
Right.
tools and we're getting into it, so that works out. But aside from that,
That's wild. That's so cool. How can people find your class if they want to come out to Colorado and maybe visit or something?
Yeah,
like that?
so if they just go to DonnyDust.com, that's
Okay.
where I have pretty much my contact info, and I build everything custom. So
Okay.
I try not to make these just kind of cut out sort of classes.
Cool.
So if you're wanting to focus more on medicinal plants and like animal tracking, that's what we're going to do. Shelters and finding the best ways to use flour, that's what we're going to do. So I just
He's like, I just taught her how to make bread. I think she'll be fine for a little while.
yeah, I craft them specifically in like one of the things that I've been working with this group called Survival Mastery, and it is an online platform that is kind of reducing all of the fluff that's kind of on YouTube as far as survival skills.
Right.
Where some things can be a little questionable, or some guy's like, let me show you how to make a bow drill, and he's in his garage in like the perfect environment. So this is a collective group of like, it's kind of like a mastery. What do they call? What did Dr. Dre do?
Drugs.
Drugs. Yes. No, it was
Smoked weed.
the master classes
day.
or something like that.
Master class.
Yeah,
Yeah,
master class. Yeah.
So this is that, and it's called Survival Mastery, and that's essentially
Right.
what this is. So there's people on there with very specific skill sets, and they'll be demonstrating those, and it's
I mean, having private classes like that too means that you can also move forward faster,
Yes.
which is great.
Yes.
Right? You're not stuck behind, or you're stuck behind and you need to learn a little bit more, and so you
Yeah.
go, okay, we'll do it again, but I'm gonna get this down pat right away, which is incredible to do
Yeah.
for people.
I think like maybe like 3 months ago, I brought a guy out into the Utah desert. He signed up for 10 days, and he was also a survival instructor from Ohio. And one of the challenges he faced was he's like,
Mormons. There's Mormons there.
Mormons are
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
But he knew a lot of this stuff, but he had never really been able to kind of put a lot of it into action. So I'm like, well,
Right.
we have no water, we have no food. So we're eating rats, we're drinking from puddles and plants. So it gave like a whole different kind of aspect. And rats are good to eat. I mean, they're not bad. Pack rats and stuff. Put hair in your chest.
Yeah.
Well, I know if you came out of Ohio, it's probably a lot easier to start a fire in the desert.
I mean, eastern woodland, that kind of, there's a lot more
Always
trees.
raining.
Yeah. But like
right.
out in the deserts, I mean, it's hot. We're sleeping in
hot.
caves. We're essentially kind of going into that live mode. What can we do to live? You know how to make a fire with a bow drill, so we can move past that.
Right.
Now we're kind of going to this different level of truly living out here. You helping me, I'm helping you, and that's kind of how I like to create those classes.
Yeah, that just makes the whole personal experience even better.
Yeah.
Because you're really going
Yeah.
at your
So you
rate.
really offer all kinds of stuff then. You'll straight go out in the woods with people and
Yeah.
with
Everyone
nothing.
and
That's
anyone.
Dang.
Yeah,
That's great.
It's fun.
Yeah.
You meet some great people, from doctors to pilots to college athletes to moms to dads, and like they all have a very cool story and what kind of motivates them, and you just kind of reinforce that motivation and try to really drive home the skills. If it's a dad with 3 daughters and he just wants to bring them camping and make sure that they're not going to get hurt,
That's great.
then that's what we focus on.
Right.
What do we do? How do we go about doing it? And just kind of get into that kind of general flow state, and we're there.
Also, camping in Colorado is so great too. I mean, it's so much fun to camp in Colorado. I mean, people travel all around the world to come here, and so whether you're
People wait online to get the permits.
and fly
Self-included.
right
I've done
over
that,
here
dude.
just to be able to camp. I mean, these are the months for it. So that's really cool. All right,
busy.
we got to wrap it.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining
And
us.
so pretty much your website, DonnyDust.com for everything.
DonnyDust.com. That's absolutely perfect. You'll
Yeah,
find everything.
you can
need
find
there.
this Zaddy on TikTok also.
Yep, it's on
Like
TikTok.
it
Donny Dust for everything. You can
Are you?
find us.
I mean, I'm not wrong. Okay, I'm not flirting with you, but I'm not wrong. You were
This is
the
gay, if you couldn't
epitome.
tell.
Yeah. He could tell, Elliot. Shut up.
No, I appreciate
I'm trying to
it.
just meet this girlfriend. That's what I'm trying to do.
But yeah, follow me. Follow me at Mr. Mike Hawkburns. Mike Hawkburns on everything. And
Yeah,
we're
follow
at
me.
WolfHawk Comedy.
Yeah, WolfHawk Comedy, both of us, and then at Lizzie Wolfson and at Lizzie Wolfson Comedy on YouTube to see the video, so you can check us all out.
And big thanks to Dude.IDK Studios for recording for us today.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you guys so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.